Hello, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where we know never to sing into a colander. You might strain your voice. So today, we're going to take a look at sold listings pages. So there are a couple of different ways to set these up, really because the sold listings data that shows on these pages can be sourced from different places. First would be if we're getting sold listing data from the MLS. If we are, then sold listings can be viewed right on your public website through the regular listing search. Also, any of that data can be automatically added to the sold listings page in the DeltaNet that displays it on kind of a purpose-built sold listings page that you can also put on your website. Now, the beauty of that second option is that in addition to the MLS-sourced data on those pages, you can also manually add sold listings to those pages. So if a listing is if it sold a long enough time ago that it is no longer available in the sold listing data that comes from the MLS, you can still add it into that page. Or maybe it was never in the MLS. Maybe it was one of those listings that just sold before you even had a chance to list it. That's it's always a nice scenario, right? So in any case, if we're not getting that data, you can add it in manually. So first off, let's take a look at the one that shows up publicly. So I'm going to go over here and just go to my profile page, just so that I can get this preview website link to open up my website. There we go. So once your website is opened up, we're just going to go to a regular search results page. And then from here, I can change the status of this page, or the status of the listings I'm looking for, to find sold listings specifically. So we'll open up listing type, and you can see there is a recently sold option. So we'll uncheck active, and we'll check recently sold. There we go. Now this is working on test data, so there's no actual sold listing data attached here, so we won't have much to look at. But you can see that when I check recently sold, it gives me the option of selecting how long ago I want to look at for sold listings. So last 30 days by default, but I can go all the way out to the last 2 years if I'd like. So let's say we wanted to create a page that showed all sold listings within the last 6 months. So we'll just change that to last 6 months. And now we'll go over to our filters, and I'll say only my listings. And there we go. So with those two options selected, this search results page should now be showing all of the listings, all of my listings that have sold within the last 6 months. And now I could filter this down further however I'd like. I can filter it by option, by any of this other listing criteria, just like I would if I were doing a regular property search. So it just gives me a lot of freedom there as far as creating more than one sold listings page that point to different regions, that kind of thing. But for now, we'll just say all sold listings, so we're all set up here. Now I'm just going to go up to my address bar, and I'll just copy the URL for this page. And you can't see where my mouse is, but it is in the address bar of my web browser. And you'll see what that looks like here in a minute. So I just copied that URL. So now I'm going to go into the DeltaNet, and we'll go to Website, and then down to Pages. If you don't have that link there, because this side navigation is customized in some cases, you can go up here to the Quick Actions bar, and you can just type in Pages, and it should come up in this drop-down as well under Navigation. So, and you'll have to be on the upgrade package to be able to modify your website pages. Now, once you found your way here, we're going to create a new page. And we'll just go over here to external is going to be the type of page we created. Now we're actually linking to another page on our website, so it's not really external, but we have a URL we're pointing a top navigation link to is the idea. So either way, anytime you want to point a link that you put in your website navigation up here at the top to a specific URL, this is the page to use, an external page. So now for link title, this is what will actually show up in the navigation, and it will also show up in my page list here. So I'll say sold listings, and just because we're going to do both, I'll put MLS in there just to differentiate those. Now next, I can choose if I want this to be surrounded by my agent template. I definitely don't in this case because I'm linking to another page on my own website. So effectively, the template would appear twice. I would have the template embedded into the template if I did that. So that's not something that I want to do. Now the next thing I can do is I can have it open in a new window. You could do that if you want, but generally it's only suggested that you open these links in a new window if they are going out to a third-party website. That way, you keep users on your website while they go off to this page. And just to give you a quick idea, if I open my website up and I click on buyers and listings I've shown, for example, When I click here, it replaces the page I'm on with the Listings I've Shown page. If I had this set to open in a new window, it would actually open a new browser tab, and then I would still have my old browser tab open to the page I started on. So if we go to the home page, and I go to Local Area Info, Canton Landing, it replaces the page. If it was opening in a new tab, I would then just be able to close that tab and I'd be back on the home page again. So just to give you an idea how that works. So we'll leave that off for this. And then our next option here, Areas Links Shown, I can choose navigation menu or bottom links with a particular theme that I'm using. Bottom links would make it show up all the way down here at the bottom of the website down here. And navigation menu makes it show up or available for this menu. And you'll see how that shows up in just a minute. So we'll just do navigation menu for this one, update page. There we go. And now if I scroll down a bit, that'll take me to my navigation menu section. And down here at the bottom, you can see I have my Sold Listings MLS link. If I go back to my page and refresh it, you can see there is Sold Listings MLS right there in my root menu. Now, if I want to position that in a different way, I can actually just click on this and I can drag it wherever I'd like. So if I want to move it up, let's say I want it right after home. So I'll just drag it all the way up here, save it. We'll go back to the home page. I could have just refreshed my page, but there it is, Sold Listings. And now if I click on it, it takes me to this page that, again, shows no results because in this case I just don't have any. But for you, it will likely show some results. Now the other thing you can do here is you can actually nest this into the drop-down menus. So Sold Listings, if I wanted to put that under Sellers, would make the most sense. So we'll go down here. I have it embedded one, and it should be the first thing in a drop-down menu under Sellers now, or it will be as soon as I save it. There we go, refresh our page. Now Sellers, and there's the first option. Now the last thing I can do is I can actually nest this one further, so I can put it under Recent Transactions. So now it's embedded one more. And if we save it again, refresh our page again, Sellers, Recent Transactions, and there it is. So it gives you an idea how customizable that top navigation menu is for links like this. So the next way you can set up a Sold Listings page is to look at the dedicated page for sold listings. And as I said, that gives you more control over what you display as a sold listing and exactly how those show up. So to set up one of those pages, I'll just click on New Page. And this time, I'm going to select Predefined. There we go. And now for my predefined page list, I'm going to go down and select Sold Listings, and then in parentheses it says Only shows when you have sold listings. The neat thing about that is if you don't have any sold listings set to show on this page, the link won't show in your navigation at all. So once you have that selected, you can see you have an option for sold keywords, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail later. For now, just know that it's there. Now we also have a price range specification here, so if I do have a lot of sold listings and I don't want to feature them all on this page, I can put in a price range here and it will only show the ones that are between that price range. And then keep in mind, you can create multiple sold listings pages. So you could create one that's my sold listings under 500,000 and my sold listings over 500,000, and then just set your price ranges accordingly. The next thing you can do is you can decide whether or not you want to show the listing comments. You can decide whether or not you want the map to be displayed on this page, and you'll see what that looks like here in a moment. You can decide what content you want to show up at the top of this page. So if you want to put some custom content that shows up right at the top of the page, you can do that. I'll just type out custom content so that we can see where that shows up. Next, we give it a link title, just like the other page. So we'll just say Sold Listings, not MLS. Would be a good way to differentiate them. And then navigation menu, page title, all that stuff works exactly like it did before. So now that we have that page set up, we'll go down here, update. There we go. And now if we click our button here to preview our page, there you have it. This is what the page looks like. So you can see our custom content shows up here at the top. Then we have our map that lays out where all of our sold listings are, or at least all the ones on this page. And then down here you have your sold listings, at least the ones that are set up to show up on this page. So if you did put in a price range, these are the ones that fit within the price range, or if you used keywords, these would be the sold listings that have the matching keywords. And like I said, we'll take a look at that in a bit. So the way this system works is there is a page in the DeltaNet where you can define what your sold listings are. By default, And barring any, there are company settings that can turn this functionality off, or you can opt out of this functionality on your own. But by default, if we're getting sold listing data from the MLS, those will automatically be picked up and added to the system so that they can show on this page. Even if we're not, you can go in there and you can add them in manually. So if we're not getting sold listing data from your MLS, this would just be listings that you've gone in and entered by hand. If you are getting, or we are getting, sold listing data from your MLS, this is actually a combination of anything you've entered manually and anything we've put in automatically. So if we're getting that data, this may be all you need to do. You may not have to manage this page at all. You may just be all set to go here. But just in case you do want to manage this page, we'll go back into the DeltaNet, and then the easiest way to find this page, like most other pages in the DeltaNet, is to just go up to your Quick Actions bar, type in sold, and you can see sold listings comes up as our first option. So we'll click on that, and here we are on our sold listing management page. So from here, it starts off with the sold listings that are already in. So you can see these say they're manual because I put these in by hand. This one says unknown. It came in through a third-party integration for testing. But yours will generally say manual or automatic here. And then automatic would mean it came in from the MLS and we added it automatically. For all these pages, or all these listings rather, I can go ahead and click on them. And you can see it brings up some information about the listing, a single picture. It shows the original price as it was when entered, be it from the MLS or manually. And then the sold price, since oftentimes those are not the same. And if we're not getting sold data, we probably have an original price, but we don't have a sold price. So you would have to enter that by hand. You can see you can enter the sold date. You can choose the status, so you can actually set pending listings to show on this page. So if I were to save this as pending, this page would actually show that it's pending here instead of showing it as sold. You can choose whether you represented the buyer, the seller, or both. You can add a tagline that will show up on that page as well, and you can add in some keywords. Now the way these keywords work is when I add a keyword to a listing, if I create just an open sold listings page with no keywords, like I did with this one, it shows every sold listing on that page, within the price restrictions if you put any in. But what I could do is I could create this page and use that keywords field to set test keyword. And then when I loaded that page up, the only listing that would show up on it is the one that has that matching test keyword in this case. It's particularly useful if you want to segment out your sold listings pages by region, for example. You could put in a keyword that corresponds to the region that listing is in with all of your listings that are in here. Then you could create multiple sold listings pages that target the specific keywords so that you could have a sold listings page specific to each region. Just to give you an idea what that's for. Now the next thing we have here is these are the comments from the MLS. Now in this case, like I said, I entered this manually, so these are the comments when I entered it. But if this came in automatically from the MLS, these would be the MLS comments. And then you can put this information here to override that if you'd like. Next, you have a map that allows you to customize the location of this listing. So generally, this will be correct on its own. But if it's not, you can just grab this pin and put it wherever you'd like and hit update, and that would save that. And then lastly, you can add a picture in for this listing. And typically we're only concerned with the one primary photo for a sold listing. And you're generally not looking through a series of photos for solds. So there you have it. That is how you would set up, or really how you would modify any of the listings that are added here. So let's go back to our sold listings page. And now from here, you can also delete any of these if you'd like to. Just click the delete button and verify that. If you want to add a new one that did not get added automatically here, you can just punch in the MLS ID right here and hit Find Listing. If the system does find a listing that matches that MLS ID, it will bring it up in the results here. So you have Found Sold Listing, and actually 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3, so it found 3 sold listings. You would just put a check mark next to the one you want, and leave it unchecked if you do not want to add it. So the ones that are checked here, when you hit Add Selected Sold Listings, it'll add those onto your sold listings page. And you can see you can modify what the sold price is, or what price it actually sold for, the status, sold or pending, whether you represented the buyer or seller, the tagline, and then custom comments. You can add all those here when you add the listing. So we'll go back one more time. Now the other thing you can do is if you have a listing that, let's say for example, is more than 3 years old, we're not getting the data from the MLS, or maybe it's not coming from the MLS because we just recently connected to that MLS, for whatever reason. We didn't get that data ever, so it's not available in the platform at all. So, and I'll just punch in a random ID here. So the idea would be, you type in an MLS ID, you hit find listing, and it tells you it didn't find anything. What you can do is click here, and then you can add that listing in manually. So you'd put in the MLS ID, enter all the information here, and then once you've entered everything out, added a photo to it, you can click Create Sold, and that will add the sold listing to the system so that it can show up on your sold listings page, even though we don't have any data in the platform for it. So that's something that really makes this page shine over just using the sold listings search results page from your public website. You have this kind of control where you can add even older sold listings to this so you can still feature those. So we'll go back to our sold listings page again. I'll just type it up here. There we are. Now the next thing we can do here is we can select a different sold listings template. In this case, I would always suggest use the responsive template here. Your website is going to be responsive generally, so you want to make sure that this page is also the responsive version so that it shows up correctly on mobile devices and desktop devices. We do still have a couple of old options in here, the 2-column and 1-column version of this page. Really, we leave those in as kind of legacy options because there are still some using those, but they're not ones that you want to use when setting up this page new anymore. And then the last thing we have here is the ability to automatically add sold listings. So like I said, if we're getting sold listing data from your MLS, you should be getting those added here automatically by default, unless the company has opted to turn that off for whatever reason. If it is turned on for you and available to you, but you just don't want it to automatically add those, you can just change this opt-out of auto add sold listing system to yes, and then it will no longer pull in those automatic ones. So stuff that comes in from the MLS, it just won't add them here. And it's kind of relying on you to either not use this page or to add all your listings in manually at that point. Now the next thing it will do is it will send you an email whenever it does automatically add a sold listing for you. If you don't want it to do that, you'll just switch this to yes. So opt out of auto add solds email notification. You switch that to yes, and then it will not email you. It'll still add them, you just won't get that notification email. And then once you've checked, or once you've set those the way you'd like, you just click save, and that saves your settings. So there you have it. That is how you can set up the two different types of sold listings pages through the DeltaNet so that you can better demonstrate your sold listings on your website. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to send an email to support@deltagroup.com or give us a call and we can help you out with whatever you need. Thanks a lot.